Good day. Today we have Jed Marsh, who is an assistant director of Body and Soul, which is a charity in London. Thank you very much, Jed, for offering your time for this, and particularly we're interested to chat a bit more about trauma and with young people today. It would be good first to hear a bit more about yourself, Jed, and a bit more about Body and Soul.
Sure. Well, where I might start is Body and Soul is a charity that was started 27 years ago. I was there at the beginning. Emma is the director now and was the founder at the time. And we started very much as it was a community response at the time to a community that was very much not being served by the wider system. I came into it through my teaching. I was a newly qualified teacher, very inexperienced, and and at the time, I think being thrown into this world, which was very unfamiliar to me, one of often families that were dealing with a lot of very challenging issues, not just physical health issues, but as we'll talk more about, this is when we started to develop an understanding of the impact of trauma, both on what we like to describe and separate as physical and mental health, but at Body and Soul, as our name suggests, is actually how we work with the two in a very kind of integrated way, because they are inextricably linked, and we can definitely talk more about that. So for me now, I continue to be. I probably see myself as sort of sitting across a range of disciplines, really, from social work, youth work, the therapy world as well, because I'm not a therapist, but I have trained in certain therapeutic disciplines as well, including dialectical behavioral therapy, which again we might come back to.
Right.
And I work here, Body and Soul. Now I describe it as it's very much a therapeutic community. So beyond the charity, we operate as a charity, but actually, really, we're a therapeutic community that has evolved over those 27 years. Initially starting with families that were identified to us through their HIV diagnosis. So we were perceived as an HIV charity, but we never felt that's who we were, because our understanding, and it's still something that the wider world struggles with, is seeing beyond diagnosis. We're often very obsessed with diagnosis as if it provides the answers, and often it just gives us the clues. But for us,
Indeed.
we knew that HIV was not the start of difficulties in those families. And what we've basically done is learn a hell of a lot over 27 years to know that what we'd established here was beneficial to a wide range of families where the root in some shape or form has been trauma. So that's where we've come full circle to this day. And Body and Soul feels like, to be honest, we've almost grown into our name more and more, really, because essentially we're whoever we see, and we work with the life course. We have babies and right up to people in the sort of more the latter stages of their life. And specifically, we have a whole range of different services, interventions, and all kinds of experiences that we can offer to specific age groups, so younger children, adolescents, young adults, which we would also identify as a specific life stage, and then right through, but always keeping, and this might be of interest to the people that you work with, Ryan, it is very much always being able to work systemically with a kind of very much a family focus. Never, I think this is often
Yes.
what our system does is with children as well. It will often be very diagnosis focused, but then any response to that is again very individually focused. It might be a very specific, it might be around autism, it might be around ADHD, it might be, but very focused on the child to the exclusion often of what is day to day the most significant network, which is the family, whatever shape or form that takes. I think we recognise that unless we're working in partnership with all of that, we're often, to put it bluntly, often kidding ourselves that we are having more of an impact than we might be. So there's all these lenses that I think we do really well at holding simultaneously. And I think that's often the difficulty in the wider system is that you've got to go to one person to look through that lens and go to another person to look at that lens. And when we're talking about trauma, if you're talking about the fundamentals, one thing we know is a very safe generalization is trauma, in whatever form it takes, fragments it fragments the individual in terms of um, it impacts them in a way that it affects their ability to form and maintain relationships, to regulate themselves to the world around them. But what it also does is then fragment those wider networks and relationships, which we all rely on as a child. We rely on for our learning, the sort of social emotional learning,
Yes.
and effectively this becomes a sort of whole problematic cycle where so it has that effect and then cuts you off from essentially the same thing that can be of help to you, that can help you move forward and work through those different adversities that you may have faced. Hence, we work with, and I'm sure you also come across families where either the child has been asked to leave school because of behavioural difficulties, or the child themselves is refusing to go to school because
Yes.
it is for them, they experience it as being an environment of stress, of just an environment that's almost impossible for them to navigate. And the anxiety builds up and it becomes unworkable. We do work with a lot of families where that is true, and that is a daily reality. And absolutely, you can see the direct link. You can see and understand that this is an expression, and it's sort of almost like it's a very natural it's a very natural consequence of where at some point in your life you have been exposed to an experience that felt where you did not feel safe
Mm.
for a prolonged period of time, and your nervous system, as we know with trauma, it adapts it in very young children in particular ways, but right through from the ages 0 to 18 we know what is often referred to as adverse childhood experiences. We understand the neurological response to that, which effectively means that our nervous system becomes very trapped in fight or flight responses to any environment, and that it's not by chance that that becomes almost reset and re-regulated to go on to live a full and active, healthy life. It happens through somebody understanding and noticing what's going on and actually making available a whole range of interventions that we know actually really work. And I think this is the
Mm.
difficulty. The difficulty at the moment in our society. This is becoming a bigger and bigger issue. Schools are struggling to cope with it within their existing resources, and they don't have necessarily access to the training that I'm somebody who comes from a teaching background and also went into teacher training before swapping over to body and soul. And I mean, even back then, you think about actually there was very little input around even engaging with families. It was all very focused on. I mean, I absolutely am a big advocate of child-centered education. I think it's something that has been lost somewhere along the way. But what I'd also say is if now has got to be the time when if you're an adult who is responsible for any group of children on a regular basis, having an understanding of childhood trauma and adversity, and how it's not a niche area of knowledge. It's something that even all of us as adults, whatever our upbringings were like, we can also think of times where we didn't feel safe. Those can leave impressions on us as adults now that we still have to really work hard to manage. Yet we know it's mental health statistics around young people, children, young people. We know which direction they're traveling at the moment, and you look around
Yeah.
and think, how do we interrupt this? How do we turn this around? And I think just to pause at this point, so you can throw in whatever your next question, but a body and soul, I suppose our conclusion is it's got to start at the center, would be around connection. So for families who are trying to support children and young people where school's tricky, day-to-day life's tricky, the support isn't available, that the answer starts is how do you connect? How do you not feel like you're facing this on your own? How do you connect with a community where this is familiar, this is
Mm,
understood, this is not stigmatized? We're not going to blame you. We're going to support you.
mm.
And I think that for body and soul is one. That's our starting point. Um, Maybe I could go on and give you something, tell you a bit more in detail what that looks like. But that's the rationale, and I
Yeah.
hope it's resonating with people listening in.
No, thank you, Jed. And certainly it's great to hear about the underpinnings of that philosophy in your organization that, you're really not looking at things on the surface level and looking at
Yeah,
um what makes up a human and also how humans are connected in their community and environment. And we need to look at the whole picture. It's really great to hear about
yeah,
that work that you are doing. And yeah, certainly there's also some resonance with us there as well.
yeah.
Um, for a young person then who may come into your under the services of body and soul, I mean, and let's say it's a teenager,
Yeah.
um, which perhaps goes to what you're mentioning about more specific examples. But how would you say that young person experiences the services and
Mm,
the pathway really that they have?
yeah. Um, I'm going to be really, so I'm going to be really honest about this. If it's a, so I'm when I finish this conversation, my mind is turning straight away to Saturday. I use that as a context. So this Saturday, we run Saturday programs for, um, so therefore either children, young people, and their caregivers who are adopted from the care system or are under what's known as special guardianship, or are in sort of kinship care sort of arrangement. So um, for those young people, I'd say, because this Saturday we have someone new coming for the first time, I think it's hard. It's if they were telling you what was that, what do you remember about the first day? They'd probably say, I didn't want to come.
Mm,
That actually they all come on a pre-visit where they can get to connect. So this is the thing. They would have known about us often. This is the sad part of the story, and the one thing that I want to really change is families sadly only come to us when they they've been referred to other services. So, for example, a young adopted person who is struggling at school, they may have been sent to do some art therapy, and I'm not suggesting at all that doesn't have benefits, but I think individual therapy does not necessarily have a great success rate, particularly with adolescents and conventional therapy. The idea, because what it communicates often is that there's something about you and your presentation that's a problem, and going there is going to resolve it. So it's almost, no one would say that, but it's these young people are very sensitive, and it's often the unspoken, not the spoken, that they draw their conclusion.
yes.
Right. And I think my thought around that is it doesn't have to be that way. So for us, that first visit is, it's like, look, we're gonna tell you, we're gonna be transparent. We're gonna let you know what the deal is, right, when you come here. But at the end of the day, it's about relationship. I want you to go to leave knowing that I've communicated to you that I have an appreciation of some aspects of your life that that make sense. They're not that it's not that it doesn't make sense. It's a
Mm,
mystery. It's like, yeah, it
mm,
makes sense. We understand,
mm,
and that understanding. And we wouldn't necessarily say it this way, but we understand that in the case of adoption and special guardianship, the trauma aspect of that is begins right at the beginning of life. It's the removal from your birth mother at very, very sort of first few days of life, often, or the early stages of life, which in itself, in an understanding of trauma, I've heard described on numerous occasions as being, I mean, not that we compare trauma necessarily, but in terms of how profound that um, is very, it's hard to quantify. It's enormous in itself. The
Yes.
impact of that, how the child responds to that at the developmental, a crucial developmental stage,
Yes.
it already um, it sets things up in a way where, look, the odds are stacked actually about that life, that young life, um, developing and continuing in a way that there aren't going to be some difficulties appearing. So I guess what I'm saying is we understand that, and we also know that that tricky start in life also increase your chances of further trickiness as you start to go to school and in a system that doesn't make allowances for that. So when you come here, first thing we have to do is communicate. Look, this is a bit different.
Mm.
We are going to attune the environment with your heightened sensory state. Because such a large proportion of children, young people coming in is there is hypervigilance. The nervous system's it's like it's on edge. It's picking
Yes.
up things. It's so with the staff here, we have to again in our behaviour, we have to be very clear in our communication, our facial expressions, our body language, all of that is so important, and it's part of the environment that you'll pick up straight away when you step through the door. So that is attuning the environment. But if you choose to come back for the session, you're still probably going to say, no, I don't want to come. So this is the thing. That's where the relationship kicks in. I might have to speak to them on the phone and go, okay, I think I know what's going on. I understand this can feel really anxious. You don't know as yet. Let's work out. Let's do this step by step. And we go from there. So flexibility
Yes.
is a key approach in anyone working with children and young people who've been impacted by trauma. The structure is very important, but there's also flexibility in that structure. And I think again, often the wider system and environments that young people have to navigate, they don't have that. Um, we won't get into that now, but I think that sometimes is the issue because what we can do is we can go, look, how about today? We've got let's just go for an hour. You can see by lunchtime, we'll sit down and you can make a decision.
Mm.
So that thing about actually helping them feel that they're not being told what to do, that they have
Yes.
agency. It's a slow process.
Mm.
It's a slow process. But where that I'm describing something that I also know works. Sometimes it surprises us that it works, but it does. It's just tailoring it. And when that's successful, what we'll then open up is you come into a setting where you're not on your own with a therapist. You're in an environment where there are other young people. There are very good high ratios of staff of many different kinds, not just therapists, but we have therapists in the team, but we have play workers, youth workers, um, we have creatives, we do a lot of creative work. Uh,
Great.
so drama specialists um, but you've got this rich environment and you have a kind of every day there is a structure that's familiar, that's very social, deliberately social. So we have meal times together. And I was going to say, this is something we talk about a lot in the group, is beginning to become familiar with discomfort. So the anxiety that pops up all the time it often starts as a body sensation.
Yes.
And what we do here is we work to decode that as well
Mm.
because so this is where some of the different therapeutic techniques come in. We use a lot of skills-based behavioral techniques, so helping children understand their emotions, make friends with their emotions, not see them as their enemy, not seeing them as positive and negative. Just these are helpful. These help us.
Yes. Yeah.
So the thing about, I guess that maybe what I can just say to conclude is really our method is one where I think there's it's I think there is absolutely a way that you can make all of that, all of those really important, um, I mean, skills and knowledge about what's going on, what's happening to you, what that is. That's all. It's totally achievable. Often, what you have to do though, and the hard work, is put it in a context that's relevant to that young person. So how do you integrate? I'm just thinking about Saturday again. This Saturday we are using some. We use a lot of drama, so we're doing around with the younger ones. We're theming the day around the idea that there's more than meets the eye. So what
Mm.
you see and what your brain tells you in that split second, often that's not the fact. That's not necessarily the truth about it. How do we really find out
Mm.
what is going on? Whether this is if my body's saying threat, do I trust that or do I check it out?
Yes.
So this is something that so we're exploring this thing creatively through. I mean, we're doing it. You might think, how do you do? We're doing it through cookery, through art workshops, and we're doing it through we're doing it through some gardening as well. So
Brilliant.
the common thing there is it's also you can access and you can communicate often through um, sort of sensory channels
Mm.
rather than again what the idea of the idea of talk therapy for kids of a certain age with certain experiences. It's like that's a
Yeah.
bit sometimes that's a little bit of an adult concept, and it's
Mm.
like look, we have communication habits, or we can use different channels of communication that can be calming, that can be um, expressive, that can be exciting and so Saturday is going to be very much around using a theme, but we're building in skills there that they can take away and use as well. So um,
That really sounds great, Jed, and it, thank you. That to provide that picture really of certainly your approach, working with young people, and that yeah, it's a process which is often not found in out there. As also we would acknowledge that as well, that
yeah,
that you can often find these more people want an instant or fix to problems which are out there, and these problems are um, not only in the individual but um, really in the community. And it's best really, as you say, not to address it as a problem, but really this is where we are, and we understand, and how do we move forward from here? So it's really great to hear that.
yeah. I was going to say the one thing I so the other part of Saturday is and you obviously know our building very well, Ryan. But the great thing is it comes to life because every layer of the building there's different age groups. Right at the top is the adults gather, so that's the adoptive parents, special guardians, caregivers within those families. Because simultaneously, rather than coming in and putting their feet up, we say, well, okay, we're looking after your kids, they're engaged, they're learning stuff, and you need to too. We'll do it in a supportive way. We'll
Mm,
have time to talk and let off some steam because
mm,
it's tough. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing for me. I'm constantly reminded that it is being a caregiver of a young person whose life has been in some way impacted by trauma. Is it's a tough parenting job. It requires a lot of care, and it realize it's doing it day after day. It's we are absolutely. I mean, I have to say, I am, I have so much respect for the parents, and I know sometimes you just need to go, say what you need to say and not worry about how it's going to be. It's just like that's just human, and then we can get down to some work because
yeah,
there was lots of things that can help.
yeah.
Um,
Just
with
provide that
yeah,
space really for healing to happen.
yeah, absolutely. So
But-
that's the critical bit that I wanted to just make clear as well, because that without that, I
Mm.
think it's really hard. I think you need to have all those pieces together. So
No, thank you very much, Jed,
yeah,
and really appreciate your time. And really great to hear what's happening there, and good luck for Saturday.
Yes,
I
thank you
hope
very
that
much.
goes well, and really it's uh, been enlightening to hear more about what's happening at Body and Soul. So thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.